Okay, so I'm someone who has 4.5 thousand hours in Lost Ark on Steam. I had a pretty established roster and I was very successful at performing DPS on the highest level, whether that was normal part of the game or Inferno mode. And yesterday I uninstalled the game without any intention of ever coming back. And this video will serve as both an explanation of why I made that decision, and also a final shot that I want to take at the corpse of this game to have a reason to never come back. Like, if I at any point in the future will get an urge to return, I want to go back, watch this video of my own, and have it stop me. This is also the third iteration of the script, with the two previous ones ending up being so long that I decided to ditch them and intentionally make a much shorter script. When you want to play a game, I want you to think about the process that needs to happen. Like, you want to go from not playing a game to actually playing one. And there are many steps on this way. Booting up your PC, booting up the game, and then, even when you're already in the game, can you say you're playing if, for example, let's say you're sitting in the main menu, or sitting in a queue for a match if we're talking about a competitive live service game? Well, probably not, right? Because what we truly mean by playing is that every game has a core, fundamental gameplay loop experience that we are all coming for. If it's Valorant, we want to be in the match, in the round, in the fight, fragging out, aiming, trying to kill people, etc. If it's a single player game, then we want to be in the game's world, walking around, fighting enemies, interacting with the environment, etc. I hope everyone got the point. So in the same way that I'm not playing Valorant to experience sitting in the queue, I'm also not playing Lost Ark to sit in the party finder or click UI elements, such as opening chests, bags, pouches, managing my inventory and storage, claiming rewards from various sources, going to various NPC vendors to buy out their weekly and daily resets of items, bifrosting around the world doing my Una tasks. All this, and a lot more, which I'm not mentioning for the sake of time, are the gameplay elements that do not count as true gameplay. And it's just something that exists to artificially inflate the amount of time you're spending in the game client without actually playing the game. If you just take the party finder alone, I'm not going to say you spend more time in the party finder than in actual raids, but just the fact that these amounts of time are even comparable to each other is already enough to be awful. I remember when I tried Throne and Liberty some time ago, which was my first time in a while playing a full 3D immersive open world MMO, I instantly noticed that simply running around open world and simply fucking moving through space-time in that game already can count remotely as active gameplay. Because the world is beautiful, the movement is responsive, you can spin your camera around, there's no loading screens, etc. Lost Ark is an isometric game without open world, without good graphics, so the only thing that counts as active gameplay is combat gameplay. The thing that the game has always been praised for. And the conclusion of this section is that the ratio between active gameplay time versus the build-up time that leads to it in Lost Ark is extremely low compared to most modern online games available on the market. In any game, there's a constant flow of the player base. Players are graduating from noobs to solid players and then eventually top tier players. Some people quit, other people come to take their spots. I'm not gonna explain why the constant supply of new players is important for any game. If you don't already know why, then either take my word on it or just go do your own research and then come back. So let's get straight into the point. If someone genuinely asked me for an unbiased opinion on whether or not I can recommend Lost Ark to a new player in 2024-2025, I would say a vivid, bold no. New player experience is terrible in the current state of the game. As a new player, you will be getting overwhelmed by the amount of upgrade systems, having not even nearly enough gold and resource generating options to have a reasonably fast progression pace, experiencing famous Lost Ark's gatekeeping, experiencing extremely low available playtime, as you're going to start with only one endgame character, and you're going to quickly run out of content and have nothing to log in for like 5 out of 7 days of each week. And again, this is just a short list of bad things that you will experience for the sake of time. To make it super short and give a definitive conclusion, being completely unbiased, genuinely honest and objective, I do not understand why a new player who randomly happened to try the game in 2024-2025 would stick around for long. And I think that about 9 out of 10 new players very quickly quit the game. Okay, so you've definitely heard about these two extremes of a player base in any game, casuals and hardcore, and each of them want the opposite. Casual players want something to kill time with minimal to no skill check or skill gap. And hardcore players are saying that, no, this model is boring, we need more challenge, everything needs to be ultra hard, the game must reward high degrees of skill, you have to prove yourself, you have to earn it through sweat and tears. That's me, by the way. I am a hardcore competitive player. The point is that with demands of each part of the player base being so different, it's evidently super hard to balance the game in a way that is pleasing both audiences at the same time. So what I see as possible solutions are two main options. You either A, choose one end of the spectrum and shift the entire focus towards that, or B, you create essentially multiple games within the same game, where both casual and hardcore game modes exist kinda independently. And both of these options are something that you can see in the industry today. For example, Valorant or CS are choosing option A and heavily tilting towards competitive audiences. But also something like Genshin Impact is also choosing option A, but shifting towards casual player base instead, and all three of these games are very successful. Option B I think is more rare, and off the top of my head I can only remember one game that went with this, and it's Fortnite. But probably the worst thing that you can do is try to please both audiences within the same game content. And a good example of what happens in that case is Apex Legends. Apex was constantly jumping between being a casual and competitive oriented game, and each part of the cycle, one of the audiences was very happy with the game, but the other one felt alienated and would shrink, just to feel rewarded again in the next phase of the cycle. But now there were a lot less people to enjoy the state of the game because a lot of them already quit. And at the same time, the opposite audience was now furious and shrinking too. So as a result of these fluctuations, the game was constantly losing a lot of players from both audiences and ended up in a critically bad state. And I believe, though this was definitely not the only thing that killed Lost Ark, it was one of the things that had big impact. Cockle said in endgame era, game is super hardcore, people can't beat the raid even with overgearing, a lot of them quit. Next is Brawl v1. The game is still very difficult, but now also very fatiguing, as the raid on top of being difficult is also very long, 6 gates. Casuals continue to be unhappy and quitting. Then Akan. The raid is much easier, but generally most people are happy because 6 gates of Brawl were fatiguing even for hardcores. Then Theamine. Again, back to extreme hardcore, casuals are in shambles, they can barely manage normal mode 1-2, a lot of people quit. Next is Echidna, was also a significant challenge. Casuals continue to be unhappy, even more of them quit. Now barely any casuals are left in the entire game. And what happens next? Next raid is Behemoth, the easiest and most boring raid in the entire game since launch. Immediately with it, tier 4 update, everyone gets free 20 item level boosts, new power systems, hyper awakenings, T-skills. The power is through the roof. Old raids that used to be challenging, such as Theamine, are now a joke. Moreover, continuous difficulty nerfs, HP nerfs, mechanical nerfs are happening again and again and affecting various raids. Every party is a skip party. No mechanics, just one-shot the boss. Finally, they've listened to the casual feedback, right? But it's too late, because now barely any casuals are left in the game and nobody's enjoying this. Next raid comes out, it's A-Gear, and it's one of the easiest raids in the game. Hardcore players massively switched to full-on bussing gameplay to not go insane from how easy the game was. Casuals are following them to equalize the gold earning opportunities. It makes the game worse, bussing gets semi-shut down on an official level, hardcore players are in shambles, a lot of them quit. Oh, and I forgot about Brawl v2, which also came out at some point during this. The week of release, it was a heaven's door for hardcore players. A pretty difficult DPS check. Casual players were very unhappy, calling the game more pay to win than ever, but then Frontier system kicks in, and in a few weeks, it turns Brawl Hard into a homework tier experience. And hardcore players are facing 2 to 3 months of content drought until Act 3, where they are stuck without any meaningful challenge. They go insane and quit the game. So, as you can see, the game has made a few critical turning points from being casual at launch, then turning hardcore, then back to casual, back to hardcore, and every time one part of the player base was bleeding out, taking turns, which brought us to this point where both of them became empty, and before the bots kicked in yet again, recently, we saw daily concurrent peaks dipping below like 15k. Conclusion, is I think the game should finally choose the side of either casual or hardcore and just stick to it forever. Right now, the game is extremely casual, and I think, again, that the best way to handle it moving forward is to keep it this way, I guess. But there's not really any way forward because the game's like a bazillion other issues and it's functionally on a direct way to end of service, so what am I even talking about? The issues discussed so far are not even close to being a full description of why the game has failed. But as I said in the beginning, for the sake of making this video shorter, I'm not going to make dedicated sections on everything else. I'm just going to dump some of these things briefly into this one. The game has an absolute out of control situation with cheating and breaking game rules. It's horrifying how most people who are serious about the game trick themselves into thinking that cheating and breaking rules is normal. Using bots, engaging into RMT, you will struggle to find a serious Lost Ark player who has not quit yet, who didn't ever engage in some form of cheating, and many of them continue doing it to this day. Rules exist, but AGS failed to enforce them properly, so way too many people are getting away with cheating. If you're watching this video and you've cheated in this game and did not repent your sins, just know that you're not cool at all and nobody likes you. Technical side of the game is dogshit. Base game is built on an old Unreal 3 engine, which fails to properly utilize increasing computational capabilities of modern systems. However, the game in KR runs a lot better than our client here in the West. Why is that? Poor implementation of anti-cheat combined with incompetency of AGS employees or lack of funding. As the result, the game with mediocre graphics yields low average frame rates, stutters, and inconsistent frame time. The technical expectations from a dynamic action combat system game in 2025 are far exceeding what Lost Ark can offer. Alt system and an abundance of classes. The game should have never had so many classes. An ideal number, in my opinion, would be like 5. But for a specific subgenre of Lost Ark, I think up to like 12 would be acceptable. The game is currently sitting at 27 playable classes, and it's not intending to slow down on this. New classes break the game. They break the balance, they make balancing infinitely harder than it could be, they have to be introduced through power creep or feature creep to be considered, which they are. It is bad for the game, and it's killing it. Alt system is also just a bad design choice. More than half of your gameplay time should be reallocated to a singular main character with some incentives to play a couple more. The current system has always been universally voted down by the majority and is only appealing to minor amounts of people. There's just way too much RNG in this game. In upgrade systems, power systems, cost, earning, almost everything in this game depends on dice rolls. The game needs more guaranteed outcomes where you know exactly how much something will cost, how much you will earn, etc. Because most video game players are not gambling addicts and do not want to become one. Being a secondary region and constantly waiting on updates that are already available in Korea fucking sucks. It might sound like it has a benefit of us being able to be more efficient because we know what to expect and what's the best way to spend gold or what to focus on, etc. But there are just so many reasons why it's bad that this one perk doesn't matter. Constantly living in the future, living in the plans, being envious, feeling outdated. Players gaining unfair competitive advantage by practicing raid clears before big race events such as the one with Theamine that already happened, and the one with Kazeros, which is expected to happen. God help this game stay alive until then. Killing so many opportunities for content creation such as theory crafting on new builds after balance patches and class reworks, figuring out raid mechanics and experiencing raids blind. Korea gets to do it all and we get nothing. Everything that happens in Lost Ark already has a detailed guide on it by a Korean player, and it kills a lot of excitement about the first time experiences in the game. Like, what are we even talking about? A successful game cannot have a region that is a good 3 to 4 months ahead of everyone else. It's just a dead idea. While there are still plenty of things that could be covered, I'm not going to spend any more time discussing this game. My verdict is the game is on its direct path to the grave, it is beyond the point of saving, and the only thing that can help it potentially is if they make a new game and completely reevaluate the approaches with game design and monetization scheme. Either Lost Ark 2 or like a completely new MMO. But the original Lost Ark is fucking over.